Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May God's peace and blessings be upon you. Welcome back to One Eternal God, One Eternal Message. Again, this is Zahar Helmi, and I thank you for welcoming me into your homes or wherever you are watching this program. I hope that you did watch our first program. It was about our father Abraham and his life and his children, and we did concentrate on the two commonly known children that everybody knows about, and that was his firstborn Ishmael from Hagar, which tradition says that she might be the same one whose real name was Keturah, and Isaac from his wife Sarah. Let's just to remind ourselves, we know about Ishmael and Isaac, and again, here are the names of Abraham's sons from his wife Keturah, whom he married after the death of Sarah. In the book of Genesis, in the Old Testament, the Torah, chapter 25 and verses 1 and 2, we read these names. Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. And notice we have Midian highlighted. We'll see that name a little later also. Now, we are going to concentrate on the descendants of these children and the interaction between them. Let's go back to his firstborn, Ishmael. And we'll stay in the Torah and the Old Testament because the Quran does not have much detail. It doesn't have many details at all about his descendants. So, to be fair and to get the complete story, we turn to the Torah. We'll stay there in Genesis, the first book of the Torah, and verse 25, and then verses 13 through 15. And it's interesting to see there that God's blessing, which he promised our father Abraham as he was praying for his son Ishmael, that he would make him into a great nation, he promised him 12 sons. And he did actually. Ishmael actually did have 12 sons, and here are their names. In Genesis 25, 13 through 15, these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth. Nebayot, remember this name? We'll see it again. Nebayot, the firstborn of Ishmael. Kedar, again we're going to see Kedar's name again. And then the third one was Abed-El, and Mibsam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Haddad in English, Taima, Yatur, which in English we pronounce Jetur, Nafish, and Qidma. 12 princes, 12 kings, 12 separate nations. But that was God's blessing, and he came through with it to Ishmael. Now let's move back to Isaac's side. Isaac did not have 12 children. He only had 2. He had 2, and let's read about something interesting that happened there. In the Torah, again, staying in the Torah, the first book of Genesis, same chapter 25 and verses 23 through 26, here he's speaking to Isaac's wife, Rebecca. We don't have her name here, but we all know, if we have studied the scriptures, if we have studied the revelation, we know that Isaac's wife was Rebecca, or Rivka in Arabic. And here the Lord is speaking to her, to Rebecca, Rivka. He says, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first one to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. And heel in Arabic is aqib. So he was named Yaqub, Jacob. He who heals, grabs the heel. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. Remember, we read that the younger one will be stronger than the older one. But he was a grabber of the heel. He was a pursuer. And we'll hear more about what happened there. But see, Ishmael had 12 kings. Isaac had only 2 sons, 2 nations. What's going on here? We know if we study and read the record that Jacob played a trick on his brother Esau. And because he did play a trick on him, he had to run away for his life. And he went back to Mesopotamia from where his grandparents had come. But Esau stayed there. And Esau had married women from the Canaanites. And he saw that his father, Isaac, was not really pleased with that. So to please his father, again we're staying in the first book of the Torah in Genesis, chapter 28 and verses 6 through 9. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. And that when he blessed him, he commanded him, do not marry a Canaanite woman. And that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Padan Aram. Esau realized then how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael. Remember, who was Ishmael? Ishmael was Isaac's brother, half-brother. So Esau goes to his uncle and he married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth. Who was Nebaioth? He was Ishmael's firstborn. So here we have Esau, the son of Isaac, going to his uncle Ishmael and marrying Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nebaioth, Ishmael's firstborn. And he had her in addition to his other wives. Daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. Esau was red. And Edom means red. Adamah, it's red color of clay. Esau was known as Edom, another name for him, and he settled in the hill country of Seir. Now, Esau had 2 sons. According to Genesis 36, 8 through 12, he had Eliphaz and Rauel or Reuel, and then Kenaz and Amalek were his grandsons. We will see that as we read in Genesis 36, 8 through 12. So Esau, that is Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. This is the account of the family line of Esau, the father of the Edomites in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Esau's wife Adah, and Rauel, the son of Esau's wife Basmath. The sons of Eliphaz, Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Esau's son Eliphaz also had a concubine named Timnah, who bore him Amalek or Amalek. These were grandsons of Esau's wife Adah. Now, where did these people live? and also the Torah, but in a different book, in Numbers, chapter 13 and verse 29, the Amalekites, it says they live in the Negev, and Naqab, which is the southern desert of Palestine, Israel, however you want to call it. It's there that they lived. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Let's move on down a few years, and we read about the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, and verses 23 to 28. Now, Joseph was one of Jacob's children. He had 12, but Joseph was number 11. And he was really loved by his father Jacob because he was the son of his favorite wife. And we read here, so when Joseph came to his brothers, they were herding sheep, and he brought them food and supplies. When he came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing. And again, we'll stop at this because that's important. The robe was not only important because of its colors, but it was a symbol. In this case, it was a symbol that he would be considered as the firstborn, receive the blessings of the firstborn, be the head of the family after his father's death. And here he was son number 11. So there was jealousy. His brothers didn't really like that at all. And when they saw him coming from a distance with that robe on him, they were really upset. They took him, verse 24, they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah, one of the brothers, said to his brothers, he says, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he's our brother, our own flesh and blood. So his brothers agreed. And when the Midianites merchant came by, what happened? His brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites. Now come on, we talk about Midianites, Ishmaelites, it's all mixed up. Well, they were half brothers. They were together. They saw Midianite merchants. They sold him to the Ishmaelites. Half brothers. They were their cousins. It was all a family thing. Family feud within family members, half brothers and cousins together. So we leave Joseph in Egypt, and we'll be coming back to Egypt to pick up the story from there. But I would like now for us to go back to the Quran, to Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah 21 and verse 83. Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah 21 and verse 83. And remember Job, when he cried to his Lord, truly distress has seized me, but thou art the most merciful of those that are merciful. And speaking about Job and his story, growing up in Egypt, I used to love listening to his story during the month of Ramadan. We'd gather around the radio and we'd listen each evening as the story progressed. And it's just wonderful the way that both what I heard as a child over the radio and what we can read in the Torah in a special book by the name Job. It's a long book, about 40 pages, and divided into 42 chapters. We will not read the whole thing, but we'll just read a little bit and see what it was saying about Job. So again, the book of Job in the Old Testament, the Torah, we read from chapter 1 and verses 1 through 3. In the land of Uz, and it's believed that Uz was somewhere in the southern part of modern Jordan or Syria, or possibly the northern part of today's Saudi Arabia. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he owned 7,000 sheep, 300 camels, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. Now, skipping a few verses, going down to verses 13 through 22, we continue again in the book of Job in the Torah. One day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword," that means they killed them, "and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came to him and said, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burnt up the sheep and the servants, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, more? While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they're dead. And I am the only one who escaped to tell you." At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. We go to verse 21 of chapter 1. And we read that, "Naked," he said, "I was born, and naked I will depart." He praised God's name. And then in chapter 19, verse 25, I love this verse. The book of Job, chapter 19, verse 25. Job declares and says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." What a faith. What a man of faith. And then the book of Job ends in chapter 42, verses 12 and 13. This is amazing. "The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. He had 14,000 sheep, 1,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. Now, if you go back to the reference we had before about the number of his sheep and donkeys and camels, this here is exactly the double. God blessed him with double what he had prior to his tribulation. And here is the last verse, of chapter 42, and the last verse we're reading, verse 13. And he also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. God blessed Job with double the riches, and he gave him back 10 children for the 10 he had lost. Yes, truly, we worship an awesome God. He is an eternal God with an eternal message. And next time, we will deal with the rest of the descendants of Abraham, and we will see yet another part. And we'll start with Prophet Moses. So please be with us next time. Until then, may God bless you. May his peace and mercy rest upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.